Hey guys, what's up? My name's Theo, play middle linebacker, Hilversum Hurricanes. That's in the Netherlands, that's in Europe. I play Euroball. I'm continuing a little two-part video to be released a week apart. The NFL season for 2022 is starting up here next week, but I'm going to be on vacation. So I'm going to put out just a little explanation into the Football 101 on how the NFL league is set up and how the schedule is determined. Seems weird, and for a lot of you that do understand this, cool. You know, you can just watch through, see if I got anything really wrong, because being wrong on the internet is great content. Or, you know. But anyways, so I'm going to go through, I'm going to use my whiteboard to describe all of that jazz and give a visual thing. But mainly this is for, like, my European friends who watch the NFL but don't really understand how this stuff works. It's just sort of like, hey, I'm going to watch a game. And much like when I would watch Premier League or UEFA or something like that, I don't know like the rankings and the teams and the league structure and all that jazz, like, because I'm used to like the NFL or the NBA or all that jazz, and in case the leagues are set up differently over here. I don't think they are too terribly much. I mean, it's kind of a simple system to begin with, so let's move on. We have NFL. My handwriting sucks. That is split into, not see a difference between these colors, A, F, C, and the NFC. And this is just two separate, that's bugging me. So these are just the two separate conferences. The winners of each of these go and play the Super Bowl. So if you have two teams that are in the NFC, they will never play each other in the Super Bowl. It's just not how the system works. Now, again, this part's fairly easy because you have the AFC and the NFC both have a north, west, a south, and an east. And the NFC, north, west, south, east. I'll get further out there, I don't draw very well. Now, each of these, we're going to go with black for this, has 4 teams in it. So, there are 32 teams total, because, 4 times 4 is 16 times 2 is 32. It's simple math. I'm not expecting anybody here to be, religiously watching a number file video or something, but yeah, that's pretty much how the NFL is set up. These are not, so the AFC and the NFC, like across the map of the United States, kind of overlay each other. That's why there's a north and a north. But many times we're going to go and we're going to describe the teams in, say, the NFC. Oh, that's not working very well. Been a while since I've used these markers. So in the NFC, like I said, you have your north, west, south, east teams in those divisions. Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings. And then in the west, we have the LA Rams, Arizona Cardinals, 40, and San Francisco, and then the Seattle Seahawks. The south, the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. East is where it gets a little weird. You have the Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, and Washington Commanders. I don't think, my coffee cup in the way? No. Okay, good. So, as you can see, if you look at the general look of the United States, you have Chicago, Detroit, Wisconsin, Minnesota. I mean, those are all around the Great Lakes, so they're obviously in the north. In the West, you have the Los Angeles Rams, Arizona Cardinals, again a Western state, San Francisco, California, Western state, Seahawks, Seattle, Washington, Western state. The issue is that the Rams were actually originally in Los Angeles, but then they moved, and so a NFC West was all the way over in St. Louis, which is basically the middle of the country. This is where we're going to get into weird, because down in the East you have the Dallas Cowboys, which is in the South and also midway through the country, but is considered in the East, with Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York. But the Dallas Cowboys are way over midway through. Having the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that all makes sense. That's all in the South area. It gets a little awkward because they are dealing with these directions and not like the Northeast and the Northwest and the Southeast and the Southwest. So you'll get something like here is in the East, it's New York Giants, even though they're way up in New York and, you know, are probably a bit more north than Chicago even. So why are they not in north? Because it's just how things are worked. Quadrants work with a V like this, not a right angle like that. Just how things work. We'll move this over and I'll explain the AFC. Okay, so now that's in red. We'll put this in blue and we'll go north, east, south, west. That's how I learned is Nord, Oost, Zuid, West. For those of you that want to know the Dutch. So in the east, there's the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots, and the New York Jets. North, the Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, got two CBs there, Pittsburgh Steelers. South, you have Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts. This whole conference makes no sense. Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans. Then west is your Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs. Currently used to be the Oakland, but now is the Las Vegas Raiders, and LAC, Los Angeles Chargers. So, let's go and describe this stuff here. So we have north, Baltimore Ravens. Well, that's kind of midway down the East Coast, but it's still maybe, and you have both of these, Cincinnati and Cleveland. They're around the Great Lakes, so that's in a northern part of the country. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. I mean, in that part of the country, there's definitely much more north. But here's where it gets weird. It's because you have Baltimore and Pittsburgh, which are like middle of the eastern seaboard. But over on the east side, to be fair, they are more east, you have Buffalo and New England and New York. And, like here, like this is like weird because Miami is like the most southern city almost, but it's not in the south. And this makes this south makes no sense. It does when you think about where the teams originally were. But teams moved and got renamed, but they still had to maintain their position in their conference. So, because unlike European football, it's not tied to the city per se. It's a private organization. It's a private company that exists within and identifies with the city after a fashion. But yeah, you've got the New York Jets, the New England Patriots, and the Buffalo Bills, which are all basically in the same state. And then you've got the New York Giants, but that's in the NFC. So yeah, you've got like the Buffalo Bills, New England Patriots, which are in Massachusetts. And then this says New York, but they technically play in New Jersey, but that's right across the river. But like Indianapolis, if you look at Indianapolis, it's right there along the Great Lakes. It is not considered even in the cultural southern states. It's not even in the South. Indianapolis is north and cold and all that stuff, but they're in the South because of where the team used to be. They used to be the Baltimore Colts and then moved to Indianapolis. Now we have the Ravens, which the Ravens are north, but they technically exist more south than Indianapolis. And Indianapolis is in the South. But Indianapolis used to be in Baltimore. I mean, Jacksonville and, Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee is the South. Even though it's kind of midway through the country, it can still be kind of considered the northern end of the South. And then Jacksonville's in Florida. That's so south. Houston, Texas, right along the Gulf Coast. Definitely fine. And then, but like west, I mean, when you have west, people kind of can consider anything west of the Mississippi, which is like 2/3 of the country, west. That's why you have stuff in the breadbasket in Kansas and Denver and Colorado, and the only thing that's technically on the West Coast are these two, and this one's at Las Vegas. It used to be in Oakland, but now it's in Las Vegas, and this is Los Angeles Chargers. They used to be in San Diego. Now they're in Los Angeles. That's pretty much how that does. So, okay, so now let's go back to the black here, and we'll just explain how things happen. You've got your division, which is any of the directions, so the North Division of the AFC. So when you have all the games that are played throughout the season, there's 12, and we'll go into that in a second, how that schedule is worked out between 32 teams, or between 31 other teams, but you narrow it down within the course of that's when you'll have, so everybody fights within their division, and they try to get the varying rankings on that one, and then they each kind of play, and then they place who is best in the division. So if you hear anyone say that the Panthers are division champs, that just means that the Carolina Panthers became the NFC South champions. After that, you have all 4 division champions play each other in after a fashion, based on first place, fourth, second place third, blah blah blah, and that division leader comes out and becomes the conference champion. So they will be the NFC champion, and then they move on to play in the Super Bowl against the AFC champion. So there's 3, so that's how that goes, and there's wild cards, because in order to allow for this sort of system, you need to have more teams than work right, and plus you need the wild card rounds to make things spicy. It's quite confusing. So the person who gets the division champion throughout the regular season, if they are also the best of that, they get the first round seed. So for instance, we're going to go with one side because it works the exact same way the other side. So for the Super Bowl that happened this last February, it was Buccaneers versus the Eagles, 49ers versus the Cowboys, Cardinals versus the Rams. The next round, and then after that, you had the Buccaneers play the Rams, and the 49ers play the first round seed, the Packers. That's kind of the idea. If you get first amongst all the divisions, you get a first round thing, and you get basically this week off. And then after here, it was the Rams versus the 49ers, and it was the Rams that won and moved on to the Super Bowl. You start out with technically 7 teams, so you got all the division winners, and then 3 wild cards, but the first round pick. So since you have a first round bye, you have 2 teams, and they all can this is just how the playoffs thing works. So you have week 1 of the playoffs, week 2, week 3, and then there'll be a week break, and then they'll have the Super Bowl. So that usually happens in your January to February times. Okay, so now we're going to go on to part 2, and I'm going to explain as best I can how a schedule looks. And it's going to require a lot more of this stuff, so I'm going to do a little bit of, I have my NFL thing up here, because creating the schedule is obviously a really complicated idea. And so, yeah.